And Minister, can I first say, just to give credit to yourself for the work you've done here, you made a commitment that this legislation will be brought before the House, and you've been true to your word. So often in politics, people in your position don't get any praise whatsoever, but I'll say that much. It can be difficult to wade through all the different responsibilities, to find the time to engage with all the stakeholders and to produce a piece of legislation and to bring it here in front of the Oireachtas. So credit to you on what you've done, and I think with the safe passage of this bill, with amendments that we hope to bring forward, we will repair lives, hopefully, and we will enhance lives, because this is, as you quite rightly outlined, and you've been articulating this for quite some time, and in the bill it's quite clear that we are recognising, after many years, of the need for regulations, strict regulation in this sphere. So congratulations to you on that. I want to pay tribute to my own colleagues, Senator Mark Wall, who has been speaking about gambling possibly more than any other issue since he came into the Oireachtas. He's been speaking on it regularly. He's published his own piece of legislation around it. He's been engaging with stakeholders. I want to pay tribute to him and my own colleague Brendan Howlin, who took part in the pre-legislative scrutiny element of this as well. It is remarkable to me, when observing the history of this type of area of legislation, just how powerful the gambling lobby are. There used to be a levy of 20% on bets placed in Ireland. I don't know how many other industries have successfully lobbied their way from a levy of 20% down to what was 1%, and now I believe it's 2%. It is also remarkable that the wider lobby of interest groups have managed to ensure that that levy that is on gambling goes exclusively to a fund disproportionately which is spent on prize money that people bet on in order to get their hands on. So it's kind of bizarre on one level that the levy funds an industry that encourages people to bet. The levy hasn't heretofore benefited anybody with gambling addiction issues. It hasn't benefited any entity that might provide a different route for young people to stay away from gambling. It doesn't do anything in the health sphere, it doesn't do anything in the education sphere. Absolutely every single cent of the levy on gambling goes to the Horse and Greyhound Fund. 80% of that is for the horse racing industry, and the vast bulk of that is for prize money, and about 45 million of tax-free prize money was presented from the taxpayer to the horse racing industry last year on the backs of bets that are placed on everything. And whenever I say this to people in meetings, they're always a bit perplexed by it. How did this happen? Well, you know, it's not just horse racing bets or greyhound racing bets that accumulate these monies. It is any bet on anything. You know, bet on politics, bet on football, bet on the weather, and all of that levy goes straight into the Horse and Greyhound Fund. So my suggestion to you, Minister, is that maybe we should go back and consider climbing up that levy back up to where it was. 20% sounds like a lot, but certainly the 2% isn't enough. And what we would accrue from such a levy, an increased levy, should benefit other pursuits than just those which have such a culture of betting around them. You can't hear of a horse racing in a race only to hear the price of a bet on that horse. You can't hear of a greyhound meet only the betting is referenced. It is almost unique in the sporting sphere that when you hear of these sporting occasions, the betting on them is so front and centre of the commentary. So it is a little bit perplexing as to how the gambling levy and that industry are so completely intertwined. As has been said, it's hard to watch any sort of sporting events in the current context, only that you are bombarded with gambling advertising. It is true on television, on radio, online. There was a time, maybe when I was younger, where there was some kind of social control on betting, that you had to bet in a bookies. those bookies were only open between certain hours. There was a realization that you had to physically go to the bookies. So you did have to regulate yourself as to how often you were there, how people saw you there, the sense that people had of you, how you carried yourself if you were seen to be in the bookies too often. Your family would know that you were down in the bookies a lot, so they could have a sense of how you were spending your money or how you were engaging in that. So they could keep an eye on that. Now, of course, the advent of the internet, and now I sound like a very old person here making these comments, but the advent of the internet changed all that. It was something you could now do online. You didn't have to go down to the bookies anymore. So that social control was then more limited. And with the advent of the smartphone, which is only in the last 15 years or so, that has completely gone out the window. So you don't have to worry about that social control. That sort of physical trip down to the bookies. Nobody has to know in any way how you're betting, when you're betting, how much you're betting, unless somebody has a sense of what's in your bank account. So you can do it any hour of the day or night. You can find a way of doing it even if you're a child. And you are told every hour of the day and night to do it. So you have an interest in sport, you're encouraged to bet. You're encouraged by the advertisement that's on the front of the shirts. You're encouraged by those entities that will sponsor the various different coverage on various different broadcasters. It is a swamp that you almost have to have incredible discipline not to engage in if you have a phone and if you're interested in sport in particular. So a huge amount of what's in this bill is hugely welcome. The regulatory authority, the banning of gambling advertising between certain hours. Minister, I would say this much, and we were putting down amendments, so second stage speeches are generally just a general reflection of the state of play. But I would say in terms of the gambling advertising restrictions, I think we just have to collectively go further. I know you have listened to various interest groups and you're trying to strike a balance, and that's fair enough. But I do think that to suggest that at 9 o'clock the influence of gambling advertising is going to be lessened because of those who are engaging who are watching television or listening to radio or online, in the online sphere, I just don't think is realistic. As has been said, you trip home from the pub and you have this gambling habit in your life and on your phone. You are probably at that hour of the night going to be more influenced by gambling advertising than you would necessarily be at 1 o'clock in the day. So I think we have to have the same view of gambling advertising as we once had of cigarette advertising, as we once had of alcohol advertising. I just think we have to kill it. I think we have to kill it dead. I think we have to move away from this cultural acceptance of a level of gambling noise. You know, this clever advertising that's done by various different bookmakers and gambling companies. It's very clever. It's very engaging. It can be witty. It can be funny. It can be offensive, deliberately. But I think, as an Oireachtas, I think we're going to have to stand up stronger and say no. This does equate to alcohol. It does equate to cigarettes, because the damage that has been done is absolutely incalculable. If you have this in your life, it takes over everything. We've listened in the Labour Party, we facilitated a conversation with Oisin McConville, and he was speaking about what young people are now going through, which is different to what he went through. And the secrecy that surrounds it and the methodologies used is absolutely so dangerous. And I have to say, I don't accept the bona fides of any of these multi-billion euro companies whose job it is to screw people out of their money. And as has been said quite rightly by Deputy Daly there when speaking about, be gambling aware. I mean, that's just a pathetic nod to something that you don't really want to happen at all. So we have to have, as a collective political body, to put the person at the front and centre of what we're trying to do here, to place protections to that person, to that person's family, and to children who are going to be influenced by this. So the world is very different from when it was when I was a child, when the bookies was a place you might go to once a year to place a bet on the Grand National. Now it's all around you. It's on your phone any hour of the day or night, and it's destroying families, and it's only going to get worse. I get the sense from this industry and sort of this area is that we're just at the beginning of an epidemic, if perhaps we're not already there, because it's so silent. So what I suggest to you, Minister, just in summary of my few points, and we will be putting down amendments in order to strengthen the bill, is first of all, you are to be congratulated. You have flagged this for a long time, you brought it in front of the Oireachtas, and in fairness to you, you have delivered, so that's in your favour, and that needs to be said on the record. It is a strong piece of legislation. Of course we feel it could go stronger. The levy on gambling needs to be heightened, and it needs to fund more than just the horse and greyhound fund, because what that gets and the ring-fenced fence nature of that, to my mind, deserves massive scrutiny and massive overhaul, and other sporting entities and pursuits need to be pursued. And when it comes to the advertising piece, I know you've tried to strike a balance, but I think we need to have an absolute ban on gambling advertising and sponsorship. They need to be treated as dangerous as cigarettes. And if we had that mentality, I think we might achieve something. Because this idea that 9 p.m. we can open the gates, because you know damn well the money that these people have, they will flood our television screens and our radio waves at 9 p.m. onwards. You won't be able to hear any other ad than that, because that's the nature of what they do. So with those thoughts, Minister, we are determined, myself, Senator Mark Wall, other members of the Labour Party, to work with you to make this more robust, but certainly we have a good start because of your own work, and we will continue to work with you.